Welcome back to Made to Grow, the podcast for SME manufacturers brought to you by Flowlens MRP software. I'm Rich Dale, your host and founder of Flowlens, an advanced manufacturing software platform designed for SMEs who specialise in industrial equipment, machinery, and electrical devices of all shapes, sizes, and purposes. At Flowlens, many of our user companies are still operated by the founder, and this episode kicks off Season 3 with a look at succession planning and exit planning. We're looking at the pitfalls that can happen when founders decide it's time to sell up, move on, or pass the baton to the next generation without a proper plan to realise the value. My guest this month is Richard McMullan, founder of Value Growth Catalyst and author of the Business Exit Blueprint. Whether you are negotiating an exit soon or contemplating a change further down the line, Richard shares tons of valuable insights and hard truths on how to maximise the positive outcome for you and the business. Richard has worked with over 140 business owners, deploying his proven value growth system to help them move from a managing director mindset to a value architect mindset. So let's dive in. So welcome Richard McMullan, founder of the Value Growth Catalyst, to the Made to Grow podcast. Delighted to have you on board, Richard. So Richard, you and I have known each other for quite a while, and we were in touch recently because you shared your new book with me, which is the Business Exit Blueprint, which is a fascinating and very easy to digest system for helping people like me think about how to get out of the weeds and focus on growing the value of the business. But rather than me stumble my way through an introduction, could you give our listeners a wee bit more background about yourself? What brought you to where you are now with the Catalyst, and also, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Thanks very much for having me, Rich. Good to see you. Um, I'll not bore readers with a terribly long history. Electronic engineer by background, uh, strategy consulting and financial services, head of marketing and strategy for a 400 million division at NatWest, and then had a hankering to sort of run a business. So, 2000, got a job as managing director of a company called Slide Robes, two stores, £1 million of turnover, and grew it in the next 7 years at roughly 50% per annum until the crash. And we got to about 15, 16 million. And it was about trying to buy the business, and the crash came and that fell through. I took it down to sort of 20 million over the next 6 years, 2013, 14, nearly 300, not full-time employees, but people employed. Tried to buy it again, and for various reasons that fell through. So as I left that, I couple of guys was in a mastermind group with business owners said, Richard, we're, as you said, we're in the weeds, we're stuck, turnover's in trouble. Will you come and help us get unstuck? And so one of those guys, the stuff I'd done in the slide roof business, I applied it in there, helped them apply it in their business. They went from roughly 500,000 EBITDA to about 5 million EBITDA within about 2 years. The other guy, Robert, got himself out of the weeds, hired in a managing director, kept the business roughly the same size. But that got me back into the game. But I still had a hankering, Rich, to own a business of my own and run it. So I did a bit of look at acquisitions, found a couple of companies I was interested in buying, and corporate finance guy kindly organized some meetings with private equity guys. And I remember one meeting I'm sitting, if you can imagine it, I'm sitting opposite this 28-year-old lad in his cutaway shirt and the beautiful double Windsor tie, perfectly tied, the really expensive suit, slick back hair, and all I'm thinking is Gordon Gekko of Wall Street here. There's a Gordon Gekko wannabe. And I'm explaining the business I'm looking at, and he goes, "Oh, we love deals like this, Richard." He says, "It's even the owner's stuck in the weeds with a great product and absolutely no idea how to scale it. We can buy those really cheap, screw them down in the price, put in professional management, and flip them really quickly. 3 to 5 years, and make an absolute fortune." And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking to myself, "You little shite. That is just," and I was cross. So I'm cross. And I thought, no, that's not right or not fair. I don't want to work with you. So I walked away from that. And I started to think about it over time, and it became more and more obvious. I did a bit of research. 80% of owners never get to sell their business because there's no transferable value. of those that sell, 95% don't get the money they want. And and given all the blood, sweat, tears, sacrifices we make building our businesses, that just felt unfair. And so over the period of about a year, I started going, helping clients build value, helping them get a happy, wealthy, and regret-free exit became sort of, what drives me, became my obsession, if you will. How do you build valuable, sellable, sought after companies? And so that's what I've been focusing on since 2017. And the culmination of which, in terms of my thinking at the moment, or capturing it all, is the book you've just shared. So does that answer your question, Rich? Does that sort of get you to where we are today, or?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it sounds like across, that experience and the 130 odd clients that you've worked with, that's plenty of interesting opportunities to drag yourself out of bed and new and interesting challenges every day. I suppose you've got a quite diverse customer base as well.
Yeah, it varies from HR recruitment, and I know that's probably going to upset a lot of your listeners, but HR recruitment companies through to waste companies through to heavy manufacturing companies. It's the whole, so the principles apply across all the businesses. How you apply them slightly different, whether it's manufacturing or services. But yeah, it's distributors, wholesalers, manufacturing, e-commerce. Um, Principles are the same. The way they're applied, what makes you different is different. But yeah, no. So I've worked with over 140 owners implementing the system in some shape or fashion. So I sort of feel it's battle tested, and that's what gave me the encouragement, to write the book. Is like, I've done this. I know it
Hmm.
works. And clients were putting me to write it as well. So I eventually pulled my finger out and did it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did because it's definitely a very comprehensive and structured way of thinking about things, particularly because, like myself, in the weeds quite a lot, worrying about product, worrying about where the next customers are going to come from, looking at new markets and so on. But when it gives you that blueprint, clues in the title, to look at everything holistically. So for those who haven't yet had a chance to read the book, can you give us a wee bit more of an overview of the system itself?
Yeah. So the way I think, so for an owner to get that outcome, eventually, whenever they decide to get the deal they want, whenever they decide to exit, whether that's in 2 years or 20 years, you need to have a valuable, sellable, and sought after asset. So your business needs to be something that somebody's willing and able to buy. And and as I look at it in terms of, so the system, the framework I call the value growth optimization system. How do you build the value and sellability of the business? And it comes down to three things, right? When I look at it, is this business, so if I'm looking in the outside in, I'm saying, is this business built on solid foundations? So is it overly dependent on the owner? So are they the owner operator? Is it dependent on an employee, a supplier, a customer? And does it have the financial information and the reporting metrics that allow you to, forecast problems coming down the road, keep on top of stuff? Because if it's dependent on any of those people, doesn't have the forecasting, then it's vulnerable. It could fall over at any time. You know, if if any one of your customers accounts for more than 15% of your turnover, then your business is at massive risk. That customer goes, you could lose your business. And I've had one customer 7 years ago where their biggest client was 22% of the business, and we had to restructure, had to cut 22 heads, restructure the business, refocus it. Now, in the end, it all worked out well, but literally they went from being, sort of 300-400 grand a profit to 100 grand a loss overnight. That's what they were looking at with that one customer leaving. So, that's a huge risk. And for any buyer, you don't want that. So the system is designed to build, to make the business resilient and robust, so that if anything happens to you or a customer, an employee, you've very little to worry about. It will keep going and keep going well. So that would be the first part. Second part is, if I'm a buyer looking in, I'm thinking what's valuable. Do you have a team of people who can take you from A to B with very little input from you? So do you have and what I look for is, to problems happen if there's no It's just cultures, I would call it. If people aren't clear on what they're about, why they're doing it, who they want to do it with, if people aren't clear on what their outcomes are, what they're supposed to be doing, and there's no rhythm and routine of how the hell do I make sure stuff gets executed properly, on time, efficiently, effectively, if those aren't in place, then from a buyer's perspective, also from you as the owner, this thing could fall over without you. You don't have that team. So I like to think about, how do you build a self-driving team that, like a self-driving car, gets you from A to B with very little input from you. You give them the where you want to get to, and the car takes you there. So that's the second bit. And then the third bit is, how do you build a tribe of evangelical ambassadors? So who are those you want a tribe of clients, if you will, a set of clients who love what you do, pay you a premium for it, and rant and rave about how good you are and tell others. And the mistakes I see owners make are, they're telling too many products to too many people, as in too many different types of people. They don't have a inch wide, mile deep niche that they're focused on. They're in a really competitive market. It's a red ocean. There's sharks everywhere. They're fighting over nothing. It's on features, as opposed to creating what I call a monopoly moat, a deep, wide, defendable, piranha-filled moat that protects you from everyone else's. And that's a Warren Buffett thing. I'd love to say that was mine, but it's not. It's from Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. And that's really about saying, how do I position myself so that my clients think I'm the only person that can solve their problem in the way they want it solved? And then the third element of evangelical ambassadors is, do you have a predictable, reliable way of attracting, converting, and keeping customers? So do you have lots of recurring revenue, or is it Groundhog Day every day? Do you have a system that, if you put money in the top end, will turn into sales out the bottom end? And so it's those three things. Do you have solid foundations? Have you a self-driving team? And do you have a tribe of evangelical ambassadors? That's what the model's designed to deliver. So in behind, it takes you through to those. Sorry, Rich, I've rambled on there. You've got me on one of my obsessions here.
The Made to Grow podcast is brought to you by FlowLens, the simple, affordable MRP system specifically designed for SME device, equipment and machinery manufacturers. Our top-rated cloud-based software can help you cut down on wasted materials, time and money, and eliminate the chaos of running your manufacturing with spreadsheets and hope. Our customers have reported savings of over a day per week per person in their business by cutting out needless admin, duplication of work and countless mistakes. Plus, lead times are shortened by up to 75%. And after hundreds of successful implementations, we've got the blueprint for manufacturing success nailed down. Head over to flowlens.com for a quick video tour of the software and to hear from more manufacturers like you who have transformed their businesses with FlowLens. Now, back to the interview. It's great to be obsessed about something as interesting as that, Richard. I think one of the things that you reminded me of earlier in the book is the change in mindset of the owner. That it's the value architect rather than the business owner mindset, that we get up in the morning and we think about the business all day long until we're probably still dreaming about it in our sleep, and maybe not necessarily in a healthy way, because you're worrying about the opposite of those things that you just talked about. You're worrying about that thing you forgot to do, or that person who's let you down, or the sales pipeline hasn't been as buoyant this quarter. So what does that mean coming down the track? So tell us a wee bit more about that shift in mindset to become the value architect.
Yeah, it's a thanks for the reminder. Yeah, it's a great point. So I sort of I think of it as an entrepreneur's journey, Rich, to take it a wee bit back. So you start off as the founder. Yeah. It's like rowing a boat by yourself across the ocean. You're in there pulling away, waves crashing over you. You're doing everything. And then you almost go to a small sailing boat where you become the owner operator. You get a few crew in and they're working with you to, do stuff. But again, big seas, very difficult. You're still in the weeds, working really hard in the business. And lots of owners stay there, but the bit where you want to move to is from owner operator to value architect. And the way I think of that as the critical mindset shift, which is as an owner operator, you're thinking of your business, you're thinking about the clients and the product. The critical mind shift is to go, do you know what? Actually, I'm thinking of my business as the product. So you're looking at it in the whole. So I was a franchisor at Slide Rogues. We franchised the system. So basically, I was selling the business as a business system to franchisees. You've got to have that sort of mindset and look at it in the whole as your product. It's the business is your product rather than the product within the business being your product. So that's a really critical mind shift. And the easiest way to do that, if I say to you, Rich, do you own a business or are you a business owner? Which would you say?
Depends what day you ask me. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. I think whenever you're in the weeds, it's a different matter entirely to whenever you've got out of the building and got to think about strategy and see what progress you've made and think about the vision of where you want to be, which is all sometimes you can go for weeks or months without really stepping back and saying, are we where I thought we would be or anywhere close?
Yeah, and and that's the bit about uh, that's the bit about you own a business, that latter bit. And so I say this to clients all the time. They think about prospects all the time. They think about a bit mad. It's like, what's the difference? If you say I am a business owner, then you're linking your identity to the business. You become the business. I am the business. You don't say I am the car. I am my Porsche, or I am my BMW, or I am my Hyundai. You don't say that. So why do you say about your business? So you have to think of your business as an asset, and you say I own a business, and that's really liberating. It's actually very difficult to do, but if you don't say I own a business, it's really hard to have a happy, wealthy, regret-free exit. So for people listening, ask yourself that question: do I say I am a business owner, or do I own a business?
Another way to look at it is, do I own a business or does it own me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How would you how does that play for you in terms of does it own you? Is that just time commitment and that sort of stuff, or when you think of that?
No, well, I think over the years, as you know, I've become a wee bit more mature and experienced. You know, I think in the early days, my business was all consuming, and you articulated it, you know, very accurately there. Whenever we launched Flowlens, it was like going back into startup mode, and you know, really hard yards of product, understanding the market, you know, who the right customer was, how to sell to them, all of that sort of stuff. And it can take a bit of effort, at least for me, to unwind yourself out of that. um, and you know, you can go for a few months or even 6 months and realize you haven't made much progress on those bigger goals. But you tell yourself you're making, you know, progress on smaller things, and sometimes it's just inevitable in a small business that you need to keep the wheels on.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you know, again, as time ticks over and the hair gets grayer, you have to evaluate where you're going, and are you making the most of your time for your future ambitions, you know. And I mean, one of the things that struck me when I was refreshing myself on the book earlier was the piece about vision, you know, because you sort of stated clearly about the vision that the owner needs to have. You know, where do you want to be for that happy, wealthy, healthy lifestyle? um, and then how do you translate that into a vision that your team, you know, that squad of independent but highly motivated people can get behind. So I think that in itself can be a difficult thing to start off with. How do you advise clients on the whole vision piece?
I so I talk about courageous vision, which is where do you want to be in 10 or 20 years time, and it's never about the money. Yeah, so that's the main thing for anybody listening to this. There's a bit about your vision in terms of what you would like to exit with. And strangely enough, most people don't turn up at work, sadly, to make Richard wealthy or rich wealthy. That's not a great motivator for people. But what they do want is to be going in the journey. So where's your destination in the next 10 years? What's going to excite them? So one of my old clients, James Lecky Designs, made postural support for severely and profoundly disabled kids. James set a courageous vision. I've worked with him this. I facilitated the stuff that I teach in the book. We implemented in James' business. And his courageous vision was to eliminate hip migration in kids with cerebral palsy by 2028. That was it. Yeah. That one sentence rallied the troops, attracted people to him that wanted to go on that journey, created a fabulous focus, because then you're saying, well, am I doing something today? Are we doing something this week, this month, this year that's going to get us closer to eliminating hip migration in kids with cerebral palsy? And hip migration is a horribly painful, terrible condition that those kids suffer. Now, we can't all have that emotion, but people want to have a sense of achievement. So where is you going to get to? And it could be, I want to be if I take FlowLens and what you do, Rich, I want to be that software tool of choice that enables my clients to build super resilient businesses that every, the owner has complete confidence. They know where everything's at, how it's going, and that dashboard and stuff for those elements. So it doesn't need to be as emotive. If you can make it emotive, it's brilliant. But it's really saying, if I like to talk about the organizing thought. So why are we doing this journey? Yeah. So for me, my organizing thought is helping owners get a happy, wealthy, regret-free exit. Next question is, what's your courageous vision? Where do you want to be in 10 years in that journey? For me, I'd like to, in 10 years time to have helped tens of thousands of owners make that journey and be able to, an exit doesn't mean necessarily sell it. Exit means own it passively or hand it successfully to the next generation or sell it to your management team. But that's my courageous vision, building the team, building the system structures, processes to allow tens of thousands of owners to have happy, wealthy, regret-free exits. And that's the bit, because people can get in behind that. Some people have no interest, other people will be excited. But when people get it, they have a reason to come to work. And it's one of the most important motivators for people. Self-motivation is relatedness. Am I doing something that's important to me, that I feel a commitment to, that I have an obsession with even? Does that answer it? I sort of went off track there a bit. Sorry.
No, no, that makes sense because ultimately, in terms of having the right people on the bus, if you can honestly answer yes or no, do I understand and believe in the mission that we've set ourselves out to achieve, whatever that might be. You know, people you want people who say yes to that question and understand it, and that's the essence, I think, as well, of making it a more of a fun experience whenever the whole team is behind that. So 100%. One of the things I picked up on, you have like a diagnostic available for companies. Can you tell us a wee bit more about that?
Yeah, so I have two diagnostics. I'm a certified value builder. So one of John Warlow's stable of people. If you've ever listened to Built to Sell podcast, I've listened to hundreds of them. It's all about owners and their exits. Um, I use a tool that John created called the Value Builder Score, and it analyzes your business against. It looks at it through the eyes of a buyer and analyzes your business against the 8 key drivers of value and benchmarks you against 80,000 businesses that have been sold. So you get a feeling for where you're at on the journey and get a feeling for the strengths and weaknesses and what you need to do to calculate, to get that valuation you want. So that's a brilliant benchmarking tool. And then my own value growth flywheel system, that optimization system, I have a questionnaire that I use for that, which basically evaluates your business against 36 different parameters and comes out and says, this is where you're doing well, this is where you're not doing so well, here's the opportunities for growth. And you can either use that if you want to exit to say, right, my buyer's looking for this, and you've got this, so there's a gap, or you say it allows you to focus on the key areas to get, to build that value. But that value score assessment, what I do with that is that's if somebody wants to work with me one on one, we go through that. We identify where the business is at. We check what we need to do and understand what we need to do to get them the outcome they want. And it's a fabulous tool for getting down to root causes. So that really helps my clients understand the journey they're going on. And if it comes out that if their scores in the 90% or whatever, there's no point working with anyone like me. They have a valuable, sellable, and sought after asset, and they've got the perfect insurance policy. They can keep running it as long as they want, happily own it forever or easily sell it tomorrow. So that's what those tools do, and they give you them benchmarks and measurement of your journey to getting that happy exit, the wealthy exit.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was a speaker at an event last year who referred to the sort of private equity world, and looking for opportunities to buy businesses, and you're either the prize or you're the prey, and not everyone wants to sell their business, as you say. You want to maybe pass it on to the next generation or whatever. But for those that are thinking about that, the buyers, back to your Gordon Gekko example, you're looking to make the most of all of those years of blood, sweat, and tears, and be the prize. And it sounds like the flywheel and those 32 kind of indicators are the way to understand whether or not you're where you are on that journey and where you could improve. And certainly, like, that's what, coming back to the book, there's so much practical advice in the book. I definitely recommend that listeners check it out, because it's so well structured and well thought through. Just to wrap up, Richard, what's, I mean, I know there's tons and tons of aspects of this, but what's the one piece of advice you would give listeners? What would you leave listeners with?
We've touched on it already, Rich. I think the most important, if you want to build a valuable, sellable, sought after asset that you can transition to the next generation, own passively, or sell for a life-changing sum, first, don't leave it too late. It takes at least 3 to 5 years to get it in the place where you want to be. So thought one is start today, not 3 years, 10 years time. Start today thinking about that. And as and once you commit to that, then your biggest mindset shift, the thing that you need to do before you do anything else, is start to think of, I own a business. This is an asset that I am structuring to be able to run without me, and which, I can walk away from tomorrow, and it will continue as if I wasn't there. Yeah. So that's the two things. Start working on it now, not later, and start to think as a value architect who is driving value rather than an owner operator driving profit.
Brilliant. No better time to set those challenges than at the start of a new year as well. In terms of Value Growth Catalyst, Richard, how do people get in touch? Have you got a website? Or
the best way to get in touch with me, Rich, is through LinkedIn. So if you go onto LinkedIn, just connect with me, and in the connection message say, heard you on Flowland, heard you on the Made to Grow podcast with Rich, and I'll connect. If people want to get a copy of the book, if they go to bit.ly, so bit.ly/exit blueprint book, they'll find it there. And if they enter in Flowlands 50, they'll get it half price. So as a wee gift. And between now and when that goes live, I may just, in fact, you know what, the hell with the 50. You can get the book free, just pay for postage and packaging. There you go. That's my gift to you for A, reading the book, and B, having me on today, or gift to your listeners.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we'll get all those links put into the show notes as well, so listeners can click through and check it out. Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the insights today. Really is a fascinating framework, and good luck for growing your value and your exit plan.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks very much for having me on. I've enjoyed it.
Not at all. See you soon, Richard. Thanks. Thanks again to Richard for this fascinating insight into the value growth system. Planning for a successful exit takes time, and the building blocks needed aren't as simple as you'd think. I'd highly recommend taking Richard up on the offer of a free copy of his book to get more details. Simply visit valuegrowthcatalyst.com/book and enter Flowlands 50 upon checkout, so you'll only pay for postage and packaging. We'll include these details in the show notes too. Next time we'll be talking all things change management with my friend and mentor Angela Fumpson. An engineer by training and with 25 plus years of industrial experience, Angela is a sought-after quality consultant and business coach. Between her own direct manufacturing experience and her consulting work, Angela has worked on many successful change management projects. In this episode, we'll look at how to successfully bring about meaningful change in your organisation, whether that's cultural, operational or technological. Till next time.